only the dead have seen the end of war. The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. The beginning is the most important part of the work. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. Love is a serious mental disease. Human behavior flows from three main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. You can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. We are twice armed if we fight with faith. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. Every heart sings a song, incomplete, until another heart whispers back. Those who wish to sing always find a song. At the touch of a lover, everyone becomes a poet. Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Do not train a child to learn by force or harshness, but direct them to it by what amuses their minds, so that you may be better able to discover with accuracy the peculiar bent of the genius of each. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. There are two things a person should never be angry at: what they can help, and what they cannot. Do you desire to be wholly one, always day and night in one another's company? For if this is what you desire, I am ready to melt and fuse you together, so that being two you shall become one, and while you live a common life as if you were a single man, and after your death in the world below still be one departed soul, instead of two. Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. Desires are only the lack of something, and those who have the greatest desires are in a worse condition than those who have none, or very slight ones. If women are expected to do the same work as men, we must teach them the same things. Ignorance, the root and the stem of every evil. Laws are partly formed for the sake of good men, in order to instruct them how they may live on friendly terms with one another, and partly for the sake of those who refuse to be instructed, whose spirit cannot be subdued, or softened, or hindered from plunging into evil. Man is a tame or civilized animal. Nevertheless, he requires proper instruction and a fortunate nature, and then of all animals he becomes the most divine and most civilized, but if he be insufficiently or ill-educated he is the most savage of earthly creatures. No human thing is of serious importance. There is no such thing as a lover's oath. Anyone who has common sense will remember that the bewilderments of the eyes are of two kinds, and arise from two causes, either from coming out of the light or from going into the light, which is true of the mind's eye, quite as much as of the bodily eye. Thinking is the talking of the soul with itself. No evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death. Let every man remind their descendants that they also are soldiers who must not desert the ranks of their ancestors, or from cowardice fall behind. Sons, the event proves that your fathers were brave men, for we might have lived dishonorably, but have preferred to die honorably rather than bring you and your children into disgrace, and rather than dishonor our own fathers and forefathers. And all knowledge, when separated from justice and virtue, is seen to be cunning and not wisdom, wherefore make this your first and last and constant and all-absorbing aim, to exceed, if possible, not only us but all your ancestors in virtue, and know that to excel you in virtue only brings us shame, but that to be excelled by you is a source of happiness to us. You know that the beginning is the most important part of any work, especially in the case of a young and tender thing, for that is the time at which the character is being formed and the desired impression is more readily taken. Shall we just carelessly allow children to hear any casual tales which may be devised by casual persons, and to receive into their minds ideas for the most part the very opposite of those which we should wish them to have when they are grown up? Poetry is nearer to vital truth than history. The direction in which education starts a man will determine his future life. The more the pleasures of the body fade away, the greater to me is the pleasure and charm of conversation. But that we shall be better and braver and less helpless if we think that we ought to inquire, than we should have been if we indulged in the idle fancy that there was no knowing and no use in seeking to know what we do not know, that is a theme upon which I am ready to fight, in word and deed, to the utmost of my power. Democracy is a charming form of government, full of variety and disorder, and dispensing a sort of equality to equals and unequal alike. Many men are loved by their enemies, and hated by their friends, and are the friends of their enemies, and the enemies of their friends. If a man can be properly said to love something, it must be clear that he feels affection for it as a whole, and does not love part of it to the exclusion of the rest. Was not this, what we spoke of as the great advantage of wisdom, to know what is known and what is unknown to us? He who commits injustice is ever made more wretched than he who suffers it. People are like dirt. They can either nourish you and help you grow as a person, or they can stunt your growth and make you wilt and die. No one ever teaches well who wants to teach, or governs well who wants to govern. There are two things a person should never be angry at, what they can help, and what they cannot. Good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. He whom love touches not walks in darkness. Life must be lived as play. It's not at all uncommon to find a person's desires compelling him to go against his reason, and to see him cursing himself and venting his passion on the source of the compulsion within him. It's as if there were two warring factions, with passion fighting on the side of reason. But I'm sure you won't claim that you had ever, in yourself or in anyone else, met a case of passion siding with his desires against the rational mind, when the rational mind prohibits resistance. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. This city is what it is because our citizens are what they are. That's what education should be, I said, the art of orientation. Educators should devise the simplest and most effective methods of turning minds around. It shouldn't be the art of implanting sight in the organ, but should proceed on the understanding that the organ already has the capacity, but is improperly aligned and isn't facing the right way. An empty vessel makes the loudest sound, so they that have the least wit are the greatest babblers. Everything that deceives may be said to enchant. He who is of a calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age. But to him who is of an opposite disposition, youth and age are equally a burden. Love is born into every human being, it calls back the halves of our original nature together, It tries to make one out of two and heal the wound of human nature. Self-conquest is the greatest of victories.